Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Well, Fade to Black. How you doing? Today is Monday, February 16th, 2026. Let's do this, man. I've been working on my my Olympic wave. That's my Olympic wave. I'm going to be doing that on the show for the next 6 months. Yeah. It's pretty good, isn't it? You like that? Man, I can't get enough of the Olympics. So cool. I haven't seen this many crashes, bumps, ejections, catastrophes, and the stress of the Olympics. I just feel so bad when a skater falls on the ice, somebody gets dropped. Oh man, speed skating, right? Which is just like roller derby from like 1972. You kids are too young to remember roller derby, but man, that was a big part of my life. I never got into like professional wrestling, but roller derby, man, that was my thing. All right, here we go. Another week here on Fade to Black, and kicking off the week tonight is Michael Schratt, and he'll be with us in just a second. Just a little bit of a warning, not much, but you just never know. We are in the middle of a pretty crazy storm, and it's a storm that is both ice, snow, and rain. It's happening right now. It's freezing outside. The wind is howling. The rain is coming down like nobody's business. It's supposed to snow for the next 3 days. It's going to freeze overnight. So you just never know. So that's the warning. I'm just saying, I don't want to jinx things, but it's pretty loud. It's pretty loud here right now, considering how nice it was yesterday and over the last week. It's crazy town here. Leading up to the Conscious Life Expo, which is happening this week. It's supposed to be sunny and warm by the end of the week, but tonight, tomorrow, and Wednesday, it's snow here in the Mojave Desert. This week on Fade to Black, tonight, Michael Schratt is here. I've called the show, I named it after Mike, Crazy UFO Cases. He brings his A game every time. That's what we are going to do tonight. Tomorrow night, John Brandenburg is with us. We're going to be talking about life on Mars, an ancient life on Mars, and some other stuff. We might even get into some 3i Atlas. That is tomorrow night. Wednesday night, really looking forward to this. Holly Burns is with us, and she's a medium. And we're going to be doing E.T., Jesus, and Sasquatch. Yeah, my 3 favorite subjects, besides Michael Schratt, of course, all in one show. And Holly sent me some notes. She goes, by the way, I own a Harley. I'm a musician. And Jesus was an alien. I'm like, I'm in. Let's go, Holly. So that's Wednesday night. Thursday night, we are off air. We'll be at CLE, the Conscious Life Expo. Now, I do have an announcement to make concerning, it's a big one, concerning the Conscious Life Expo. I actually have 2. The first one, I'll get the easy one out of the way. We just have a few tickets left for my disclosure lunch, which is on Saturday, and it's going to sell out. So we only have a few tickets left. And so go now after the show tonight. Do it during the show. I don't care. But go and get your tickets for the disclosure lunch. I know that you want to go. There is just a few tickets left. We had a meeting yesterday, and we were talking about this. And I'm happy that it's sold out, or it's going to sell out. It does every year. The point is, somebody's going to be disappointed, and I don't want that to be you. So go and get your tickets for the disclosure lunch. Okay? There won't be anything I can do the day of the show. You can't come up to me and ask me to pull a favor, because I can't. The menu is done in advance. Okay? All right? The food. So go and do that. The second announcement, the big announcement, is on Monday. So we have the conference Friday, Saturday, Sunday. On Monday, it's post-conference presentations. And Ross Coulthard on Monday is going to bring a whistleblower on stage for the first time and is going to tell his story. Okay, this is going to be big news afterwards, but it's happening on Monday with Ross Coulthard. Now, the Monday post-con's great. We've got Bashar that evening. It's amazing all day. Linda Moulton Howe and others. You can go to the website for the expo, which is consciouslifeexpo.com. And all the tickets, all the presentations, post-con, any other special events, including the disclosure lunch, are all right there. And nobody wants the Conscious Life Expo to end. So we always extend it out till Monday. And on Monday with Ross Coulthard, it is going to be huge. I'm going to be there. Okay. All right. So consciouslifeexpo.com. And I will see everybody there this weekend. We have two more shows this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. And I'll do my best to continue to mention this to everybody, because after that, I'm out and I will be on my way to the Conscious Life Expo. And it is this weekend, February 20th through the 23rd at the LAX Hilton. All right, the links are below. Okay, let's get to it. Big show tonight. Michael Schratt is here. Crazy UFO cases. He's a friend of mine. I've known Michael for quite a while. And I remember, as I do this introduction, I'm going to do a brief introduction. Michael came by my house here and spent a day with me, and with a pile. We've done this more than once, but this was recently. And with a pile of illustrations, and he gifted me a bunch of stuff. But I got to see, and we're sitting here doing this presentation a mile from Skunk Works. And his passion for this and his knowledge. I thought I knew planes. You get humbled when you start a debate with Michael Schratt over what aircraft is what. He just slapped me around, put me in my place. I have huge respect for him and his knowledge of the subject, his illustrations, his artwork, and how he is able to piece it all together. He has found cases historically from the past that either we have never heard about or we have forgotten about, and they were lost with time. The history of sightings that go back before Roswell. Yes, everybody new to the subject that has come in since 2017. To them, it's like the Nimitz was the beginning of everything. And as they jump into it, they kind of find out about Roswell, and they think that, no, that is not the case. And we're going to be doing all of that tonight. We might jump into the Flatwoods. We've got Edwards Air Force Base right up the street, right? We've got all of these amazing cases. We're going to do all of that and much more tonight with Michael Schratt. Michael, is that a good enough intro? Is that enough for you, my friend?
That was good, Jimmy. And you know what? Reading your title here, Crazy UFO Cases, I concur with that.
Man, you know, you're always able to do that with me. And just when you think you've heard it all, you know, somebody like me that's really cocky and kind of a dick, and you think you know, and then Michael Schratt comes along, like, well, I guess I don't know everything, you know, and that's what's great about you. Now, before we get started tonight, and the beauty of a show like this with you, Michael, in large part, I get to just like let go of the steering wheel, right? I get to let go of the steering wheel and let you run with it. So before we do that,
right?
I'm sure you've never been asked this. I never have asked you. What got you started with this passion of UFOs? What happened?
Well, long time ago, my dad used to take me to a place called Victory Air Museum. It was on the outskirts of Chicago. And it was this dirty, rundown old air museum. They had these World War II warbirds parked out in the open field, and they were all dilapidated and disrepair and forgotten and left for dead. And it had this ghostly appeal to me, like because all the tires were flat and the paint was chipped and the windshields was cracked and the flight controls looked like skeletons. And it just had this ghostly appeal to me. They had a P-47, they had PBY Catalina, they had a Messerschmitt out there, and they were just rotting out in this field, and the grass was growing up through the wheel wells. That was the spark of interest of aviation, and that never left. That never left.
I've been there. You know, I'm from Chicago, and I've been there. It's same impact for me because I was probably the same age as you. I was probably 8 or 9. Right. When I went there, and you have high expectations, you know, shiny, you know, and you're like, what is going on? But in a weird way, it's a very cool presentation to see it like that. It is. It's very, very cool.
It's almost otherworldly, actually.
Well, you know, you've been there many times. Right up the street is the Blackbird Air Park Museum.
Yes.
And it's amazing. They've got a little bit of everything there, right? You know, SR-71 and the U-2, yeah, of course. But no, they have the 747 from the shuttle, right? The transport. But all of that, it's all dusty. Yeah. You know, it's all dusty. Been sitting out there for a while. Hey, did you know? And then we'll get started.
Yep.
Did you know that there's a B-58 Hustler called Snoopy sitting out in the desert?
Out in the desert by Edwards.
Yeah. Have you? You can't go out there to it, but have you seen it? You can drive by it.
Only in pictures. I haven't seen it in person.
Oh, I've got to take you out there.
Okay.
I've got to take you out. So there's a road. It's called Rocket Site Road that cuts through Edwards, and it's a public easement. You can drive on it. You just can't stop, right? Okay. Because you're driving through Edwards. It allows access to a freeway on the other side of Edwards, and that's why it's there. So it's not a well-traveled road, but there's a lot of security. But it's a great drive. And I'm out there on my bike, and I see something sparkle in the desert. I thought it was a flying saucer. That's what is that sitting in the middle of it? And I just kind of look, and I see the tail sticking up. Oh, that's a jet. I didn't know it was the B-58. I come back home and I jump on Google, and there it was. And then I had done a bunch of so anyway, I got stopped by the camo dudes out there.
Yeah,
it was bad. It was a bad. I didn't get arrested, but they wanted to arrest me. But I asked them. I'm trying to defend. I go, hey man, can I go see that B-50? No. Well, you didn't even hear. I know what you're asking. You want to go see the B-58 Hustler out there? No. Is there somebody I can contact? Man, get on your bike and get out of here. Right? They wanted nothing. So, and it's close enough to the road that you could pull over and walk to it. It's not very far. 200 yards, maybe. No, it's not. It's not. But it's on the base. So, and you're not allowed to stop your car. So that's it. You can't even sneak out. And it's about a quarter mile from the back gate. So, dude, they see everything. But I'll take you out there. It's pretty remarkable. And then next to it, by the way, are 2 B-52s.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, 2 and the B-52s were cut apart for like the Russian treaties, right?
Okay.
So they had to take them out there, and this is what I had read. Yet cut apart so the Russian satellites could photograph that they were cut apart, right? Copy me? You copy? Copy?
I got you.
You're supposed to say copy that. Copy that.
Roger that.
You're roger that. So have you ever had, and we'll get started now, have you ever had your own sighting?
Jimmy, technically, I have not had my own sighting, but I don't need to see it for myself. I've already been to the promised land. I don't need to see it myself,
Okay. Keep telling yourself that. One day it's going to happen. and it's a game changer. And I hope it happens with me. It'll be a good time. Where do you want to get started? How are we going to start this tonight?
We're going to start at the beginning here. That's the best way to go, you know.
Any particular year?
The very earliest to the very latest. That's where we're going to start.
Are we going with Jesus?
I don't know if
that early
there, but we'll go to the very earliest ones, and then we'll continue on and go to as far as we can go.
Okay. I'm curious about one of my favorite things to explore in this subject is this. Once you get before 1947,
oh yeah,
things get really interesting, because the earlier you go back from that, very quickly, 3 decades, now we're before airplanes, right?
Sure.
Right. So
Sure.
what's in the sky, right? What is in the sky? And the earlier you go back from that, the only thing that's supposed to be out there are like the birds and the bees. Right. Technically, there wasn't supposed to be anything in the sky. So the earlier the experience or reports, for me, are even more compelling and more interesting. So what have we got first?
Okay. Well, I'm going to go to share my screen here, and I'm going full screen. So you're seeing this on your end, Jimmy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the title of our lecture this evening, UFO Magical Mystery Tour. And this is I would say a deep dive into the lost, forgotten, and obscure files that have been buried away for decades. A lot of these have never been seen before. I'm going to switch over to the next slide here and give you the sources of where I'm getting this information. So QFOS, Center for UFO Studies, that used to be 2457 West Peterson Avenue in downtown Chicago, NICAP, APRO, MUFON, Invisible Residence by Ivan T. Sanderson. So I highly recommend this book to any family members that might be fence sitters or might be skeptical, because this book has case after case of Navy retrievals. There's Taiwanese fishing trawlers that caught a big 60-foot diameter dish-shaped USO, unidentified submerged object, in the net and brought it up. That's what this book is all about. And you cannot read this book, put it down without really meditating on it. And it's convincing that there's something to this, no doubt about it.
For sure.
Uninvited Guests by Richard Hall, National UFO Historical Record Center, UFO News Clipping Service, Leonard Stringfield Collection, Gray Barker UFO Collection. And then, Jimmy, just good old-fashioned boots on the ground research. This is not a research project where I'm just right-clicking on internet sites and no, that's not what this is. Going down into the archives, the newspaper microfiche, pulling the old articles, and that's how this all came about here. I'm going to continue on. We're going to start here. Did the ancient Egyptians report sightings of UFOs?
Yes.
We've heard this before, right? We've heard this before.
Sure.
But trying to provide some kind of a reference work or paperwork or breadcrumbs to tie this together is a little bit difficult. But that's why we want to go here. Wonders in the Sky by Jacques Vallée, Unexplained Aerial Objects from Antiquity to Modern Times. And he has a chapter here, and I'm just going to go through this quickly. 1347 BC, El Armana, Nile River Valley, Egypt. Akhenaten's flying disc. Pharaoh Akhenaten had a unique experience that was to shape Egyptian history. According to the inscription on the frontier stela found on the circumference of El Armana, Akhenaten was strolling along the river, admiring the splendors of nature. One summer morning, when he looked up and saw a, quote, shining disc descend from the sky. So here, Jimmy, we're at 1347 BC, and we've got this UFO sighting report. I'm going to continue here. Did the ancient Romans report sightings of UFOs as early as 100 BC?
Well,
So
let me
go ahead.
Go back to Akhenaten for a second. Just go two back.
Sure.
I want to make this comment about Akhenaten and then move on.
Go for it.
He had an elongated skull, and his kids had elongated skulls. and his wife Nefertiti had an elongated skull, as was depicted in their own artwork on their own temples, right?
Yeah.
And that combined with one other pretty amazing fact about Akhenaten, aside from his physical appearance and everything else, there is no record of his birth. Okay.
Interesting.
There is no record of his death. He just appeared and disappeared. Now, his father, Amenhotep III, he was Amenhotep IV, Akhenaten. Okay. And his dad brought him in and said, he's going to be co-pharaoh with me. And it had never been done before. They let it happen. Okay. All right. Pharaoh's God. He can do what he wants. After his dad died, the third, Akhenaten the fourth, Amenhotep IV, changed his name. That's right, to Akhenaten. And when you go and you look at the Egyptians that kept records on all of this, children, pharaohs, right? There's records of everything. There's no record of him. So we don't know who his mother was. We don't know anything else. We do know that his son was King Tut, who also had an elongated skull. And so it's a very strange situation with Akhenaten. And this story that he told on the papyrus and on the stela, the story is told twice or three times in Egyptian history. So it's not just once, right? You confirm three times. But that's what's unique about Akhenaten. We have to really put some weight behind this when you talk about him, the person, and how mysterious he was. So very important part of history, and thank you for starting with this.
Yeah, good call, Jimmy. That's a good call. So back to the Romans in 100 BC, I ran across this article, Evening Star, June 14th, 1959. Flying saucers of Roman days were shields. Even the ancient Romans of 2,000 years ago saw flying saucers, but they linked them to flying shields. This is probably the meaning of a passage in a work by Julius, I won't try the guy's last name here, a 4th century Latin poet, says Nabi Railsback, a classic scholar from Moline, Illinois, who is studying in Rome. He says he came across this sentence in one of the writings referring to a phenomenon reported observed near Rome in 100 BC. Quote, at sunset, a circular object like a shield was seen to sweep across the sky from west to east. So here we've got 100 BC, and it's obvious what they did. They were comparing things that they were familiar with on a day-to-day basis to what they were seeing in the skies. And so that's why they call these things flying shields. Makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Let's continue. So is this what they saw in 100 BC? Something that looks like this is very possible, very possible.
Yep.
Next one, going back to the Otto Binder reports. And these are all prehistory UFO cases. October 12th, 1796, on Columbus Day, over 170 years ago, Canadian observers reported an astonishing fleet of airships, UFOs, with portholes and visible occupants sailing over the Bay of Fundy from the Pacific Stars and Stripes. So this is 1796. This is long before the Wright brothers in 1903. Here's our full color version here. But this just shows you that these things are being reported for hundreds and thousands of years here. November 13th, 1833. I like this. A crowd on both the American and Canadian sides saw a peculiar square-shaped UFO hover over Niagara Falls for an hour, after which it sped away toward the ocean. So we've got 1833, and you can see this cube-shaped UFO hovering over Niagara Falls. There's multiple witnesses. Here's our full-color version, just to give people an idea what this looks like. And I want to know who's building these, who's flying these. It was definitely intent because it was sitting there and hovering for an hour. So whatever this was, it was by intent for sure. July 1868, villagers in Campezo, Chile were frightened by a giant armor-plated machine covered with steel scales whose twin searchlight eyes stabbed down brilliantly. So this is interesting because whatever this craft was had a power source that was powerful enough to have these beaming searchlights down to the city below. This is almost identical to the 1983 to 1989 Hudson Valley boomerang wave, where they also had these beaming spotlights shining down. So here's our color version here, just to give an idea of what that might look like. Wow. And then this one popped up, which I thought was interesting. 19th century's most outstanding sighting was in 1874 in Oaxaca, Mexico, where a giant trumpet hovered in the sky, swinging gently for 6 minutes, observed by many stunned people. So you've got this big trumpet flying over Oaxaca, Mexico. Yep. And I thought, let's see if we can do a color version of this thing to make this thing come alive. And here's what I came up with. And what's interesting about Oaxaca, Mexico, is they have a history and pattern of UFO sightings dating all the way to the current times. Absolutely, whole history of UFO sightings over Oaxaca, Mexico.
Now, let me ask you this, Michael, because when it comes to the amount of life in the universe, right? Especially after what Obama said on Sunday, which was pretty interesting, that the types of craft, the variety must be infinite. It must be infinite. And they would have designs that we wouldn't understand. And so the witnesses here in Mexico describe it as a trumpet because they don't have anything to compare it to. So, but when you look at something like this after these descriptions, what comes to mind?
Well, what comes to mind is we could be dealing with multiple different things converging at the same time. So we have potential extraterrestrial UFOs. We have interdimensional. We have extratemporal. We have a high-tech civilization that could be on this Earth for thousands of years prehistory. And of course, we got the man-made craft as well. And these are all converging at the same time, which makes it even more difficult to find out exactly what's going on.
It's just incredible. I mean, I see this. The illustration is how, and you do such fantastic work, is how the eyewitnesses described it. I would have loved to have been there to see it myself.
Me too. Me too.
Well, you know, my famous sighting, the beer can UFO, right? Okay. So I've described it as a beer can. It was 400 feet tall, but it was tall like a beer can. Looked like it had a logo on the side, but it was spinning. And now I don't have anything to compare it to, but it looked to me like a beer can. So when I describe it to people, I say beer can so they can picture, you know, what I saw. But that doesn't, it wasn't a beer can. But what was the propulsion system? Well, how was it up there? And then, and I was with, by the way, Steve Murillo when we saw this, and 20 or 30 other people. All of us, hearing Steve in the video when the event went down, him describing it, it's spinning, it's shimmering, it phased out. Yeah. In the middle of the day too, by the way. But I described it as a beer can. It's not a beer can. This isn't a trumpet. It's just the way that
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Fascinating. I love this. I love that.
So now, no discussion about UFOs would be complete, Jimmy, if we didn't talk about the 1897 Mystery Airship wave. And there have been literally thousands of reports, basically starting in 1896, from the West Coast pretty much to the East Coast. And there's been talk about this was just yellow journalism, that this was just a hoax and it was nothing but yellow journalism, but that's not the case. When you look at the credibility of the witnesses and the amount of witness reports, absolutely something was going on here. Absolutely. Now, in a nutshell, what people reported was this airbag-shaped craft with a gondola on the bottom. It had a wing on the left, a wing on the right. There was a rudder in the back. And then, Jimmy, there were these well-dressed, eccentric inventor-type people wearing suits and top hats. They were on the deck of the ship. Witnesses also reported big black dogs on the deck of the ship as well. And then,
oh, really? I haven't heard that. Really?
Big black dogs were on the deck of these ships, right next to the well-dressed inventor types. They were lowering anchors down from the bottom of these things. Laughter was heard coming from these craft. And so you see in our illustration here, you've got chaos going on in the town. You've got horses bolting from one side to the other. You have covered wagons flipped over. People didn't know what was going on. These craft had these beaming spotlights that were shining down to the town below. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. First UFO seen by thousands over California in 1896. So this is San Francisco, Sunday morning, November 22nd, 1896. And they have a drawing of what people reported here. And then we kind of go across this illustration. This shows you the anchor coming down. You've got the beaming spotlights. And if we take everything from this article and we feed that into AI, we're going to let AI pull out all the details and have it do illustrations for us so that we can preserve an important part of our national
well
history.
done. This is a good use of AI. Hey,
Yes.
before you, I can't wait for this. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Aviation Historian. Dude.
Okay.
When did airships officially arrive?
Well, the Zeppelins were going on prior to the 1900s, but then the Montgolfier brothers, I think they were in the late 1600s.
Yeah, so
like
we had the balloons in
Right.
France, right?
Correct. Correct.
We had the Zeppelins and von Zeppelin in
Correct.
Germany.
That's right.
Prior to this, but many people hadn't seen them. And then to have that suddenly appear over the United States, I don't think that there's necessarily a connection there, in my own opinion.
It appears that we're dealing with a different technology here.
Right.
Than just what the Zeppelins were. So here's the bullet items for the 1897 Mystery Airship. The wave actually began November 18th, 1896 in Sacramento. The object cast down brilliant beams of light on the city before it moved toward San Francisco. Eyewitnesses described the craft as being 150 feet in length with 4 rotor-like arms. In some cases, anchors attached to ropes were dropped from the mysterious craft, and laughter could be heard originating from the interior. By May of 1897, virtually all the sightings ended. Mm-hmm. And so here we'll go to the newspaper clipping. Record Union, November 23rd, 1896. And it says, the strange visitors seen there on Saturday evening. Yesterday's San Francisco call has the following account of the airship having been seen over Oakland on Saturday evening. So this is kind of a blow up of what people are reporting that these craft looks like. I'll do one more blow up here, and you can see on the deck of the craft, you've got always this well-dressed inventor type. Now, Walter Bosley, I want to give Walter Bosley credit. And I think this gentleman cracked it too. Now, what he's proposing is that there was a eccentric NIMSA group that was funding the Sonora Aero Club, and they were covertly taking the gold from the gold fields of the West California area over to the New York East Coast area. I think he may be correct. He makes a very good case for it. So I want to give Walter Bosley.
Yeah, Walter's great. Walter's
he's good.
Great. That's a pretty interesting take.
Yeah.
I've always pictured, and we'll move on, but I'm sure you did the same thing. I've always pictured like a Captain Nemo type.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And the fact that these were over water, hoses were, anchors were involved. In some cases, riverside, riverbanks. Lake Michigan, right? There's a sighting out there, and the hoses going in to the water. I always found that very interesting and very compelling.
They really looked mechanical.
Yes,
they really did. They looked mechanical here for sure.
The laughter part, I like the laughter part.
Oh yeah, that was very much reported. So this is San Francisco morning. This is November 29th, 1896. And then you can see the 2 witnesses looking at the craft. Now I'm going to blow this up here, and this is what they're seeing. And if we commit this to a full color rendering, something like this was seen. Sacramento, Oakland, San Francisco. And let's kind of rip through some of these illustrations here. It's always kind of the same motif. You've got this dirigible type craft, you've got mechanical structure, you've got beaming spotlights coming down to the towns below. People just didn't know what this thing was. They had no idea. They had never seen anything like this. Here's another version that we put together here.
Yeah,
It shows you the same beaming spotlight. Let's do another one here. And you can kind of imagine what these witnesses reported. And this went on. There were so many hundreds of reports of these. This is way beyond yellow journalism. It's telling us that there was something real going on here. And again,
man, that would freak me out. That would.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
And here's one other point.
Go ahead.
They were describing them as airships.
Correct.
We don't know that. We don't know if hydrogen or helium or something else is involved, and that's where the lift came from. We don't know that. That's what they don't have any other point of reference. It could have just been a large craft.
Now, Charles,
with that shape.
Yep, Charles Delshaw, who was part of the Sonora Aero Club, he said that they figured out a way to, quote, negate gravity. That was his thing. They figured it out. They cracked it. And this is what Walter Bosley explores in his book here. I will do a couple more here, the same kind of thing. But you can imagine what this would have looked like in 1896. One more with the beaming spotlight coming down. But this is what the witnesses were reporting here.
Yeah,
now,
so cool.
Moving on to the Foo Fighters. Newcastle Sun, January 3rd, 1945. Pilots flying over Germany at night report that strange balls of fire are following them around on their missions. They have christened these strange phenomenon Foo Fighters. So here we've got the Allied B-17s flying over Germany during World War II, and they were flying over the ball bearing factory and the oil refineries. And what the B-17 pilots reported, now we're talking about, seasoned, hardened B-17 bomber pilots. These guys wouldn't be lying. Basically, they were reporting these 3-foot diameter glowing orbs that were red, yellow, and white in color. They would circle the squadron of B-17s. In many cases, Jimmy, reports were that these orbs flew through the fuselage of the B-17 and went out the other side. And then they wrapped around and they skedaddled out of there. And that was multiple reports from World War II bomber pilots of these. Now, so this is in the European theater. We also had the B-24 Liberator pilots. They had Foo Fighter sightings as well. And not only the B-17 pilots and the B-24 pilots, but the B-29 pilots flying over Tokyo on May 23rd, 1943, they all reported Foo Fighters. So I think the credibility of our B-29 pilots is really without question. This is something that we can really latch onto and take home.
Yeah, fascinating. Some of the earliest reports during this period, not only of Foo Fighters, but of strange craft, radar, as you know, was just introduced. And suddenly we were able to track things and judge airspeed. And over the Pacific theater, man, there was a lot of crazy stuff that was seen. Leonard Stringfield with his famous sighting in the Pacific.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's absolutely nuts. And they... we're talking about 2,000 or 3,000 miles per hour at a time when the fastest plane was 600 miles per hour in a dive, right? On a good day.
And there's no question that they were under intelligent control. There's no question about that. Absolutely under intelligent control. Now, Jimmy, that takes us to this case. This is August 13th, 1947, Twin Falls, Idaho. And just to set this up, the two sons of the primary eyewitness were down on the bank of the river. They had completed their riverboat trip and they were rolling up a rope. The father was up on the canyon wall, and all of a sudden, something that looked all the world like Abraham Lincoln's top hat cut down to the last 1/3 comes screaming through the canyon over 1,000 miles an hour and is navigating the canyon walls. We're talking about multiple G's here. Back in 1947, it made no sonic boom. They said it had an engine pod on either side of the center line of the craft that had what they determined to be some type of an atomic discharge coming out. It wasn't a campfire flame. It wasn't a afterburner flame from a jet engine. There was something else going on here. And this thing created no sonic boom back in 1947. The best we had at the time was the Sabre jet, and it could not exceed Mach 1 in level flight. But this thing did it back in 1947.
Yeah, this is such an incredible sighting. Well-documented sighting, too.
Well-documented sighting. Yep.
Wow.
So here's the newspaper clipping, Times News, August 15th, 1947. Flying saucer reported flashing down canyon at 1,000 miles per hour. 2 others are seen. Now you can see on their illustration, they've got the end view that shows the engine pods on either side of the center line. So I'm asking the question again, who had the technology to build something like this and fly something like this?
E.T. You know what this case always reminded me of?
Yeah.
Rex Heflin.
A little bit, yep.
A little bit, right? Just,
Yep.
But when you have it, what is that? That's 20 years apart, right? Heflin was 67, right? 66, 67. This is 47. It's 20 years apart. With the description nearly identical between the crafts.
Yep. So here's another drawing of it here. This shows you dates, locations, the twin engine pods, which I thought were very interesting that they had these engine pods on them. Now, moving on, July 24th, 1948, Montgomery, Alabama. At night, you've got the pilot and co-pilot of Eastern Airlines DC-3 over Montgomery, Alabama. They had to make an emergency evasive maneuver, hard banked left turn, to avoid a 100-foot-long cigar-shaped craft that had a double row of white burning magnesium lights down the center line of the craft. And here you see they're banking to the left. They both got a good look at this thing. And what's interesting about this case is when they landed, they were kind of debriefed. And this is one of those cases that was a watershed case because the credibility of the pilot and co-pilot could not be denied. The government could no longer, because we just went through the flap of 47, they could no longer just sweep this under the carpet. They had to, they had to concur with the pilot and co-pilot because of their credibility. So here's a drawing that shows you their evasive maneuver here. And you've got this huge magnesium light. There was a big section coming out the back of it. We'll go to the newspaper clipping here, Alabama Journal, July 24th, 1948. It says, Eastern Airline pilots claim craft traveled over 500 miles an hour back in 1948. And then over on the right, it says, looks like B-29 fuselage blown up 4 times.
Yeah. Look at the headline.
Yep.
Fiery sky monster reported seen. Just fiery sky monster.
Yep.
That it probably scared the bejesus out.
Of course.
Right.
No doubt about it.
What you're a aviation historian. It must take a lot to have a trained commercial pilot freak out. Because you know what I mean? To get a plane off the ground, the checklist that they you know what I mean? You're in control. As a pilot, you're in control. You're the captain of the ship. And to have them freak out, that always concerns me.
No, I'm with you. So pilot, first officer, good sighting report. Now, that takes us to Gordon Cooper. A couple things to mention. Number one, he wrote a personal letter to the United Nations regarding UFOs in 1978. Number two, he was involved in an attempted UFO intercept over West Germany in 1951. And then finally, number three, UFO landing case at Edwards Air Force Base back in 1957. So
can we stop here? Let's go. What do you know about number two?
Well, I know that he was with his squadron mates in the F-86 at a 60-degree angle of attack, and he could not intercept what he described. He could not do it.
Was he told to intercept?
No, it was, well, let's go to that one real quick here. Everything about that case and everything about the 1957 Edwards Air Force Base landing is talked about in his book, Leap of Faith. So if anyone's following along here and they want to get more intricate details, it's in this book. But what he describes is that it was the meteorologist over a 2-week period that came to Gordon Cooper and all his flying buddies. And he said, gentlemen, I've been seeing these things for 2 weeks now. I just want to let you know. And Gordon Cooper turned to his squadron mate and said, you know what? I'm tired of hearing about this. Why don't we go after one of these things? So they climbed in the cockpit of their F-86 Sabre jet. they kind of did a zoom climb at 60-degree angle of attack. And he said that he could see these silver metallic discs that had a dome on top, but the flight characteristics of these vehicles were way beyond the performance of the F-86, because these things could make 90-degree left-hand turns, multiple Gs. They could back up in flight. And so an intercept was impossible, according to Gordon Cooper.
F-86, sexiest plane ever.
Yep, it's good ship, good ship.
That's a good-looking ship, man.
It is. Corvallis Gazette Times, October 11th, 2004. It says, Cooper brave for speaking on UFOs. And here it says, earlier in 1951, Cooper and other personnel several times sighted an entire formation of circular objects passing over their Air Force base in Western Germany. Quote, we never could get close enough in our Sabre jets to pin them down, but they were round in shape and very metallic looking. This is coming from an astronaut who later became an astronaut.
Right.
It's credible. It's a credible sighting. You know, it's there. It doesn't really get much better than Gordon Cooper.
No,
this is an American hero here.
No, it's Edwards. Okay, so number 3.
Yep. Okay, let's continue. And we'll get to others, because these are all in numeric order by date here. June 17th, 1952, Hasselbeck, Germany. What you have is the mayor of the town and his young daughter. They're driving on a motorcycle near town. This was one of those motorcycles, Jimmy, that had a sidecar on it, and the young girl was in the sidecar. All of a sudden, the motorcycle conked out. She got out. He got off the motorcycle. They're pushing it toward town now because the engine is gone. We're talking about a CE2 case now. And the little girl looked in this open field, and she said that what she originally thought she saw were 2 young deer in the field. She didn't know what she was looking at. She actually thought it was 2 young deer. Now, when they walked closer, they saw 2 humanoid-looking beings wearing a one-piece, tight-fitting silver flight suit. One of them had what looked like a camera lens on his stomach, and he was going back and forth taking pictures of the grass, which is very strange. And I just want to bring up this point. There's so many cases of these entities that are associated with these vehicles that seem to have an interest in our biology for some reason. Our plants, our lavenders, our flowers, our grass. And the first 5 minutes of Steven Spielberg's movie E.T. is all about E.T. protecting and saving that little plant. I wonder what Steven Spielberg knows, or what he was briefed on. You know,
right.
There was something,
and to have a lens on your stomach.
Yes,
that's what the astronauts did on the moon.
Yeah, that's true.
Their Hasselblads were mounted to their chest.
That's correct.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yep. So now what happened next is, once the 2 humanoid-looking beings saw that they were being watched, they jumped up on the rim of the disc. They hopped up on this black conning tower. I'm going to move on to the next slide here.
Okay.
Here it says a close encounter from East Germany. And you can see wrapped around the outer circumference of this dish-shaped craft are multiple exhaust ports. Once they climbed up on the top of the conning tower dropped down through the center of the craft, through the bottom side, lifting the craft off the ground. I'm going to go on to the next slide. And here you see Oscar and Gabriel Linke. These are the 2 witnesses.
Okay.
Here is their original sketch that kind of shows you what they were looking at here.
Right.
And then once the bottom conning tower pushed the craft off the ground, there was a ring of flames going around the craft itself, and then this thing departed at a low rate of speed. But very good case. Here's Rudy's drawing. I want to give credit to Rudy. This gives you an idea of what it may have looked like. And then as the craft is going, you've got these tongues of flame wrapped around the outer circumference coming out of these double row of exhaust ports. Here is the craft as it was taking off, and you've got the 2 witnesses. But very good case and very well documented case.
Fascinating about the
oh yeah.
I don't even know how to I don't have words for it, but to have it pass through the craft and extend out the bottom, I've never heard
That's right.
that before.
That's exactly what went down here. Here's the sworn affidavit. So we've got the paperwork there. Here's the CIA report from the Central Intelligence Agency. This is dated August 23rd, 1952. They go into this case. And then I pulled up the newspaper clipping here. Flying saucer takes off in red zone forest. I'm not going to read all this, but just this lower paragraph here. It says, Linky said it was an uncanny experience. I was returning home in the evening by motorcycle with my 11-year-old daughter in the sidecar when we glimpsed something shimmering white through the surrounding trees. They go into detail, but very good case.
Wow.
And then the Charlotte Observer, July 2nd, 1952, says he saw it take off. West is checking refugee story about flying saucer. And another one that goes into great detail about this case. Very good case, very well documented. Now, you were talking, Jimmy, in the beginning about the Flatwoods, West Virginia case. And I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad you brought it up because we absolutely have to talk about this case. It's a bombshell case. And I just don't know why this case doesn't get more attention. It really needs to be highlighted.
I'm so glad I just brought it up. I didn't know that this was part of the presentation.
Oh,
this
yeah.
is great.
Oh.
This is great. This is the universe reaching out to us and making sure the synchronicities are lining up here, Michael.
Yep.
This is cool.
So what we have here is this almost teardrop-shaped UFO, kind of a burning exterior section, flew over multiple states on the evening of September 12, 1952. Now, the primary witness is Mrs. May. So this is Charleston Gazette, September 15th, 1952. The 6 young boys were also with Mrs. May when all this went down. Now, they all got together, Mrs. May, the 6 young boys. They brought a flashlight and a dog, and they start going up this low mountainous hill where they thought this thing came down. Now, when they got to where this was, Jimmy, they saw something that changed their life forever. Absolutely forever. What they ended up seeing was this absolutely incredible looking device. It was minimum 12 feet high, 4 feet in diameter. It had a black spade-shaped helmet with a transparent circular cutout window revealing a red-orange, kind of like a head device inside this spade-shaped helmet. And then beaming out of the 2 eyes was a white/green light. It had what looked like antenna on either side of the craft itself. And then wrapped around the outer section on the bottom were these fluted sections that terminated into exhaust that came out of the bottom of the craft. And they were like no more than 10 feet away from this thing. They were all scared out of their brains. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Let me go to the updated illustration here. Now, this thing was emitting this oily ammonia scented exhaust on the bottom of it. And the researcher that we want to highlight, we'll get to Frank Ficino, but I went ahead and did a 3D SolidWorks model of this. Here's my blown up view. I've got the exploded view. You can see the dimensions here, 12 feet tall, 4 feet in diameter, what looks like an antenna on either side. You've got the spade-shaped helmet. We've got the circular cutout window, and I've got my isometric view. And then I thought, why don't we make a 3D printout of this thing so we can really get a look at what this thing looks. Why not, right? Why not? So here's what this thing actually looks like.
Wow.
And I don't think that is any kind of a communications antenna. I think we're dealing with something else here. Let me do a 3/4 ISO view, something that looks like this. And then we want to give credit to Frank Ficino. Now, even Stanton Friedman knew that Frank Ficino is the world's expert on the Flatwoods, West Virginia case. There's no one better in the world. He's the top guy.
Yep.
And what you're looking at is the oak tree that Mrs. May and the 6 young boys actually got within few feet of, where that craft was just hovering off the ground. I mean, this is the exact oak tree, whatever's left.
Oh, man, no. Don't tell me.
The Braxton County.
Okay, your internet. Hold on, Michael. Listen, your internet interrupted.
Okay.
and you froze. So go back to the oak tree.
Go back to the oak tree.
And pick up from there. Okay, go ahead.
So here is the picture of Frank Ficino, who's the world's expert on the Flatwoods, West Virginia case. And that's what's left of the oak tree. There's not much left of it, but it's a historic spot. I mean, there should be a plaque there. There really should be a plaque there because it's an absolutely historic spot. This is the cover of Frank Ficino's book, the first one that he did. He also published a new updated one. Now, moving forward now, we're going to get back to Gordon Cooper. So this is Edwards Air Force Base in 1957. And just to set up the scene, they were filming the installation of precision landing equipment on the dry lake bed at Edwards Air Force Base back in 1957. And all of a sudden, a 25-foot diameter dish-shaped craft hovered over the dry lake bed. It retracted the landing gear legs. The whole craft sat down, sat on the dry lake bed for 60 seconds, hovered back up, landing gear legs retract into the bottom of the craft, and then it departs at a slow rate of speed. And Jimmy, here's the clincher to it. They got it all captured on motion picture film. They documented it. He even stated that they were able to get 455 still photographs of this craft, which I just think is incredible. So let's go on to the Corvallis Gazette-Times, October 11th, 2004. Cooper saw the film as soon as it was rushed.
Oh, you froze again. You froze again.
Collected. Not too many people saw it because it quite a sharp angle and just climbed straight out of sight. He reviewed the film a dozen times before it was forwarded to Washington, never to resurface.
And that shot, go back to your illustration of the dry lake bed. That B-58 Hustler that I was talking about, that's right behind this. That's at the dry lake bed, right? Which is huge. But that road goes through this. So you are able to, when you're there, to look at the the Muroc dry lake bed. It used to be called, before Edwards, as you know, Muroc Field, right? That was the original name.
Yes.
But that dry lake bed is on both sides. That's where Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier. That's what he's not, right? But it's such a historical place. But the UFO sightings at Edwards go back to 1944 with the Air Force, back then the Army Air Corps. Constantly there, to me, what do you, we're going to head to a break, so I'll give you 60 seconds to respond to this. I know that you've thought about this a lot. What's the attraction of Edwards for ET?
Well, could have been a display. Could have been a display, you know. And according to the report, now Gordon Cooper did not run it through a projector, but he did unravel that film. It was of good quality, and they had an Air Force courier from Andrews Air Force Base that showed up at Edwards Air Force Base. He had a briefcase, and he was handcuffed to the briefcase. He took that film, came back to Andrews Air Force Base, and that film has disappeared. So my question and my call to action is, we've had these congressional hearings in Washington, D.C., and they always say, well, we don't have any evidence. Gordon Cooper is telling us that they have this film. Not only do they have the film, they have 455 still photographs of this craft. We need to get that into congressional hearings immediately.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. And for those out there, we've all heard of Area 51. Edwards was Area 51 before Area 51. And it still is. It's still a testing facility, and the crazy stuff still goes down out here. But at that point in the world, the center of aerospace was Edwards Air Force Base.
No doubt about it.
No doubt about it. Let's take our break right here. Michael, stay right there. Don't go anywhere. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, the one and only Michael Schratt is with us. We're going to take a short break. We'll see you when we come back. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. I am hosting, speaking, and presenting once again for the Conscious Life Expo, the largest conference of its type in the world. February 20th through the 23rd, 2026 at the LAX Hilton. Speaker, event, and schedule easy. Just visit ConsciousLifeExpo.com. I will be hosting and speaking at the Sedona Ascension Retreat, March 20th through the 22nd, 2026 in Sedona, Arizona. An amazing list of speakers, and it's beautiful Sedona. Come and hang out with us and just go to SedonaAscensionRetreats.com. I'm heading back to the Midwest for the Contact Modalities Expo, May through the 3rd, 2026 in Delavan, Wisconsin at the Lake Resort. It is beautiful. This is a great conference right in the heart of the Midwest, where I'm from. I'll see you there. Just go to Contact Modalities Expo, that's XPO.com. I will be hosting and presenting once again at Contact in the Desert. That's May 28th through June 1st, 2026, the largest UFO conference in the world. Come and hang out with us June 23rd through July 1st. Tickets and everything else that you need is at contactinthedesert.com. Want to change your life? Want that paradigm shift? Then visit Peru with Brian Forrester and myself for the Inca Celebration of the Sun, June 23rd through July 1st, 2026. A full 10 days of visiting the country, all of the amazing sights, and of course, the celebration of the winter solstice. It's all simple to do. Go to hiddenincatours.com. Come join us for the Monty Python Scotland Tour, August 1st through the 9th, 2026. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event where you get to go to the castles from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. August 1st through the 9th, 2026. Just visit HaleyARamsey.com. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Jimmy Church, Gaia TV, Fade to Black, here at Machu Picchu with Brian Forrester and Hidden Inca Tours. Amazing tour so far, Brian, but we're here to announce what we're going to do next year in 2026. What's going on?
Okay, November 2026, we're going to have our major tour of Peru and Bolivia, either a pre or post tour of Paracas and Nazca on the coast. And then after that, 6 days in Easter Island.
Bucket list, Easter Island. Join Brian and I and his amazing team here at Hidden Inca Tours for Peru, Bolivia, and Easter Island. Signing out. Say goodbye, Brian.
Bye, gang.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. My Olympic wave. Michael Schratt is with us tonight, bringing his A game as he always does. Fantastic. I just was checking out the chat. It's just another great show. Michael is with us. And Michael.
Yeah.
So do you remember that History Channel Blue Book series?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's good.
Yeah, me too. No, entertainment, man. But you remember when they debunked the Flatwoods monster?
That was a travesty what they did. Travesty.
I mean, oh man, so funny. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. I enjoyed Blue Book.
Yeah,
I did. I remember we'll move on right now, but I remember the first episode, I was so pissed because I was expecting something else, right?
Oh,
and
really?
the community, right? And we're all debunking, we're all, and I was like, wait a minute. So I got to episode 2 and I was like, you know what? Just enjoy it. Yep. It's entertainment. And I ended up really falling in love with the show. But that first episode, I nearly blew a gasket. And the Flatwoods monster episode, it's like, really? But anyway, entertainment purposes only. All right, moving on. So we left off with Edwards.
Correct. I want to give a shout out to Preston, Dennett, and Dolly that are joining us. So with you.
Oh, are they in the chat?
They're in the chat. They're following along.
Troublemakers, man. The two of them.
Okay.
Two of them. I love them.
Good,
They're the best.
Good. So now moving on to USS FDR, November 1958, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Before we even get into this one, Jimmy, and this is a photograph of the USS FDR, this particular aircraft had a history of UFO sightings. And the reason why may be because this was the first aircraft carrier to carry nuclear weapons on board. There was a history of these sightings with this particular aircraft carrier. So it's late November 1958. It's at night. And according to Chester Grzinski, who's no longer with us, now I did talk to him by phone. He was one of the naval personnel on the deck of the carrier when all this went down. He said it was a nighttime sighting, and there were naval personnel that were screaming and yelling and swearing and rushing to get up on the flight deck immediately. They were just desperate to get up on the flight deck. Now, when they got there, this is what they saw. This is Chester Grzinski's original sketch. This is about a 200-foot long cigar-shaped craft that they said had heat emanating off the craft itself that they could feel on their faces. So now it's a CE1 case. It's a CE2 case because it had physical effects. And then he said, walking between these rectangular cutout windows on the side of the craft were humanoid-looking beings walking back and forth. I'm going to go on to the next slide here, and you can see on his bottom blow-up, one of these beings went up to the window, looked down at the crew members on the flight deck of the aircraft carrier, waved his hand above his head, and was waving to the personnel back on the flight deck. This is his original sketch.
What the crap?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And and he even says here, me and 25 men seen this. I've got other original sketches in a little bit more detail, but in a nutshell, that is the case. So here's our full color rendering, which I've shown many times before, but this is a good case.
Yes, it is.
This is a very good case. We'll do a blow up here. And of course, U.S. Naval intelligence personnel pull the logbooks for this case. So it's hard to track down that particular part of the evidence here. Now, moving on, Father Gill sighting, June 26, 1959, Papua New Guinea. Here you have Father Gill, and you've got the mission, and what he described was a minimum 35-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that looked like a two-tiered wedding cake. The upper section was 20 feet in diameter. There were what looked like prongs and protrusions coming out of the bottom of the craft. There were 4 men. They didn't look like aliens. They looked like men. They looked like humans. They were on the upper deck of the craft. 2 of these men were near the forward edge of the upper section. The other 2 were further toward the center in the back. a little bit more obscured, and it looked like they were quote unquote fixing some type of radio or mechanical equipment. That's what Father Gill had interpreted the scene. There was a 45-degree arcing white/blue light coming off the side of the craft. And I'm going to go on to the next slide here. Here's a blow up of what Father Gill saw. And you can see these humanoid looking beings looking kind of back. And he also waved to Father Gill below. So there was two-way communication going on between Father Gill and these men on the top of the craft. Now, here's the map of where all this went down. I want to blow this up a little bit. And you can see the drawing at the bottom right is the location, Boania. This is the beach location where all this went down. We'll do one more blow up. This shows you the exact location where this historical sighting actually took place. Here is Father Gill's original sketch, and he's got these prongs coming down, which I don't think are landing gear legs. I've got so many cases, Jimmy, of these UFOs that have prongs and protrusions sticking out of them with spheres or balls at the end of them. And I think these are static electrical discharge probes. We can talk about that later. Let's move on here. This is International UFO Reporter, November 1977. So you've got Father Gill and minimum 24 other witnesses all concur basically on the configuration and shape of what this craft actually looked like. So back to the International UFO Historical Record Center north of Albuquerque. These were the original photographs within the file. Scan them in at 300 DPI. And I don't think these have been seen before. This is the kind of the exact location of where this went down. Here is the mission. We're talking about a simple mission here. This shows you the building structure. We'll do another shot of the mission. And you can imagine this actually happening with Father Gill. This is kind of the pathway to get to the different building structures. And I'm going to go one more, Jimmy. And here you see the actual beach where Father Gill was standing, looking up and seeing this UFO. Just, it's historic, absolutely historic.
This is fantastic, fantastic work.
Good. June 27th, 1959. So you see 35-foot diameter is the lower diameter of the circular section wrapped around the outer section. And then you've got these prongs and protrusions sticking out with the 4 crew members, 2 obscured, 2 near the forward deck. Distance 450 feet. So he was close enough to see detail. That's absolutely close enough to see detail. Here's another illustration that shows you what the scene may have looked like. So I committed this to a full color rendering. Something like this was seen by Father Gill. And then we'll continue on here. Now, Jimmy, when we talk about historical UFO cases, and this is just the way I'm rating these here, top 10, within the top 10, you've got the top 3. The number 1 case, Hudson Valley Boomerang, 1982 to 1989, you've got 25,000 eyewitnesses reporting these boomerang-shaped UFOs over the Taconic State Parkway. That's number 1. Number 2 is this case. Lonnie Zamora, Socorro, New Mexico, April 24th, 1964. Number 3, Cash Landrum incident, December 29th, 1980, Huffman, Texas. In that order. I don't think there are 3 stronger cases in ufology than those 3 cases. And that's why we want to consider this case. So we've got Lonnie Zamora that is chasing a speeder. And all of a sudden, about a 22-foot long egg-shaped craft goes screaming by his field of view. He gives up chasing the speeder and is now going over this unimproved road where these low rolling hills are. You can see the shrubbery here, the different bushes. And he gets pretty close up to this egg-shaped craft. He said it was sitting on 4 landing gear legs. There were 2 small statued humanoid-looking beings. They had slightly oversized heads. They were wearing white coveralls. And then these beings crawled up into the craft. There was this high-frequency noise, and then a blue-colored flame came out of the bottom of this thing. There was a big roaring noise. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. This is the map that shows you where all this went down. So close proximity to Socorro, New Mexico. Now, this map is important because the dashed line is the outer boundary of White Sands Missile Range. 5 miles to the west of the westernmost boundary is Socorro, New Mexico, which I always thought was interesting, Jimmy, because this historic event was within a stone's throw of the boundary of White Sands Missile Range. Was this a test flight that went off course? Was there a malfunction? Was this a man-made craft? I want to explore these questions here. So here we've got Lonnie Zamora pulling up to the scene. You can see the egg-shaped craft off to the left. Here's my colorized version here just to give you a sight scene here. And then here's some of the original sketches that went with the report. You've got this very famous insignia that we're going to talk about as well. Here's Lonnie Zamora, and he definitely said, quote, there was an ear-splitting roar as a blue-colored flame came out of the bottom of the UFO, and then this thing departed. You've got that symbol on here. Here's the color version that gives you an idea of what Lonnie Zamora actually may have seen here. Now, some of the best information on a lot of these historical cases comes not from the U.S., but Germany, Spain, and Poland. You got to go overseas to get some of the best information on our own cases here. So here's a blow up of Lonnie Zamora hitting the deck as this craft is taking off. Now, right. I want everyone to focus in on the landing gear pads and take a real good look at these landing gear pads. We're going to explore this a little bit here. Here's Lonnie Zamora. This is the location of where all this went down. I'm going to move to the next slide. This gives you a view of where the craft was seen by Lonnie Zamora, where it actually took off. And then this is the newspaper clipping, New Mexican, April 27th, 1964. You've got Lonnie Zamora off to the left, credible witness. Here is the top view looking down. It had 4 landing gear legs. And so this is the schematic that shows you the position of the landing gear legs. And then, Jimmy, we move on to this slide. So if you look on the side of the craft, you've got this famous insignia. You've got this umbrella type section. You've got this V, then there's a vertical bar, and then there's a horizontal bar below all of that. If you take that insignia, Jimmy, and you rotate counterclockwise 90 degrees, and you switch over the V, you attach the horizontal bar, and then you flip that on the lower left, this is what you end up with. So my question is there something more going on here? Is there something more that we haven't been told about?
I know you're going to tell us about that. And here's the thing. I do want to mention one thing about this case. There's so many different facets to it. But what were the FBI, the Air Force, the state police, and the local police, and the Army all showing up at the same time?
True.
Right. And historically, the reason why I bring that up is this logo, because when Lonnie was talking to the FBI and the Air Force about this, they were like, that's not what you saw.
Exactly.
It's like, wait. Okay. So now let's get back to this. I'm going to call it a logo. It's an insignia of some kind. So what did you find out?
Okay. Well, the actual insignia was an inverted V with 3 hash marks. That was the actual insignia that was seen by Lonnie Zamora. So the question is, why have we been shown this other insignia for over 50 years? Why was there this discrepancy? Well, according to Ben Moss in his book, Not of This World, and I'm going to rip through this here, why did Lonnie Zamora sign off on a fake symbol? The symbol was changed by the U.S. Air Force Major Holder for the simple reason that providing a fake symbol, if any other cases came up and a witness reported the fake umbrella symbol, then they would know that the witness was lying. By Lonnie signing the fake symbol may be drawn by Holder, Lonnie was signing a contract with the government to keep his mouth shut on the symbol. It was country, God, then family in those days. This is an email I got from Ben Moss, November 22nd, 2020. So I can kind of see what they did here. Sure. What they were doing is they were vetting other potential witnesses. if other witnesses said that they also saw the umbrella symbol, they would know immediately the person's lying and they were an attention seeker. That was the way that they were gauging and vetting these other potential witnesses here. I want to go over some of the bullet items on this case. Number one, objects seen within very close proximity to White Sands Missile Range. I think that's important in our evaluation here. Number two, object featured retractable landing gear. 3, UFO featured inverted barn landing gear pads with sharp 90-degree straight corners. Number 4, a mysterious metallic slam noise was heard just prior to liftoff and departure. So, Jimmy, I'm asking the question, were they closing a hatch? Was that the slam door? Number 5, a second mysterious metallic slam was also heard just prior to departure. Like it was a latching mechanism. They were closing something. 6, a very loud roar was heard prior to liftoff, change in frequency from low to high. And then number 7, a blue flame was seen coming from the bottom of the craft as it lifted off the ground. Now, what I found interesting is this blue colored flame is virtually identical to what Betty Cash described on the bottom of the Cash Landrum craft. She said that there was a blue colored flame coming out of that craft as well. So is there a connection between Lonnie Zamora sighting 1964 and Cash Landrum sighting 1980? Just throwing it out there. Now, back to this landing gear pad. And I want to ask this to you, Jimmy. Sure. Does this look like the landing pad of an extraterrestrial civilization 100,000 light years in advanced technology?
No.
But
what do I know? And but okay. And I know where you might be going next.
Sure.
One of the things that Blue Book had done, because this case was so intriguing to Hynek and the team at Blue Book, they explored every angle of this. And one of them was a claim by NASA that they were testing the lunar lander. And that turned out to be false. Then you had the kids at the local university, right, doing but Blue Book, this was an actual investigation by Blue Book. This was like a real honest attempt.
Yes.
Jacques Vallée was involved with this. And of course, Hynek was on scene immediately. And one of the things that Hynek came away was the imprints, from these landing pads.
Correct.
So I don't know, but to have Blue Book actually do some work, right, and conclude that it wasn't NASA testing the lunar lander, it wasn't the kids at the local university, pranking, and it wasn't anything else, that they determined that this was probably something else not of this earth. Mm-hmm. So back to the landing gear. What did you find out?
Back to the landing gear. So here is the cover of the book, Not of This World. And you can see what that landing gear pad looks like. And I'm going to move on a little bit further here. Here's the page 208. And this shows you the actual impression and hidden line, dotted line outline of what the landing pad looks like. We'll do one more blow up here. This gives you a very clear indication. And they got there, just like you said, Jimmy, very quickly. So this is still fresh in the soil at the time. And so when you pour plaster Paris within that impression, you end up with something that looks like this.
Okay.
This looks to me like that's something that was done out of billet solid aluminum on a milling machine. That's what this looks like. If you do a 3-view drawing of it, you end up with these 90-degree sharp corners. You've got perpendicularity, you've got parallelism, you've got a sharp corner that terminates at the bottom. Jimmy, this is screaming a man-made technology. This is not screaming a landing pad on an extraterrestrial alien device. This is just what the evidence is leading me to personally.
I have no problem. So it's such a fascinating case. I can tell you that it wasn't an airplane, wasn't a helicopter, wasn't a rocket.
No.
Right? You take all of that off of the plate. But let's go back to the symbol.
Okay.
No, I'm asking you because if it was, it's one of my favorite cases. If it was man-made,
Right.
then there would be a symbol possibly painted on the side for identification. What does that symbol, the inverted V with the 3 stripes, what does that tell you? You're the historian.
Well,
You've seen everything, right? What does that tell you?
well, let me hit you with a world exclusive, Jimmy.
Come on, bring it.
Well, I wouldn't say it's that important, but let me hit you with a world exclusive. So I took all the information from the newspaper clippings, from Lonnie Zamora, from the file, everything we could get about the configuration, and I put it in all to one thing. I printed out a SolidWorks model. I designed it from scratch and then went to the university and had them print out not one, but 2 prototypes, sanded it for 9 hours, and then finally got it down to this version right here. And so this is your symbol here. You've got the retractable legs. You've got the landing gear pads. I don't think this is an extraterrestrial spacecraft. I'm going to blow up these landing gear legs, and then we'll zoom into the pads. And then just by looking at these pads, this absolutely does not ring to me as being an ET spacecraft. I think we're looking at a man-made craft, because Lonnie Zamora said that before the craft departed, it changed frequency from low to high. And we've had so many reports of these high-pitched drilling noise attached to these craft just prior to departure. And so that's kind of my analysis on this Lonnie Zamora case.
Okay. Now, I'm just going to say it out loud.
Yep.
Reminds me of the Tic Tac.
A little bit. Yeah.
And the Tic Tac, the LP gas tank idea.
Correct.
This goes back a long, long ways, way before the Nimitz. And I remember the first thing that popped in my mind, Michael, back in 2000, when that hit, 17, 18. And I'm like, it kind of reminds me of Lonnie Zamora. There's something else going on here. That's just me, but the white egg-shaped LP gas tank type of craft has been reported for decades.
Well, the other thing too, Jimmy, is in the high definition footage of that Nimitz FA-18 Super Hornet, there were prongs and protrusions sticking out of that tic-tac shaped UFO. The exact same prongs and protrusions that were seen at Wycombe, Pennsylvania back in 1964. So this technology dates back a lot earlier than I think we all realize.
Right. Fascinating case. I'm with you on this. If I was going to rate my cases, people ask me that all the time. My list may differ from yours a little bit, but Lonnie Zamora is always going to be there.
Absolutely. No doubt. So here we have Maurice Masse, July 1st, 1965, Valensole, France. And this is the actual witness right here. And he was standing in a lavender field, which of all places. So this is the second time we've heard about this biology in this plant. So he's not thinking anything of it. All of a sudden, he hears something behind him. He turns around and he sees a 13-foot long rugby football just sitting in the lavender plant field. He didn't know what this thing was. It was about 13 feet across. It had what looked like a forward cockpit section that tapered back to the aft end of the vehicle. On the port side of the vehicle, there was an entryway hatch. Coming down from the bottom center of the vehicle was a conning tower, and then there were 6 what he called spidery-looking landing gear pad legs. That's what the configuration looked like. Now, crouching down near the craft itself and looking at the lavender plants were 2 small statued humanoid-looking beings. They were wearing a one-piece tight-fitting flight suit. They had oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nose. They were looking at the lavender plants. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. Now, one of these beings picked up a 1.5-inch diameter dowel rod that was about 18 inches in length, aimed it toward Maurice Masse, and then a pulse of energy came out, hit Maurice Masse, caused him to become paralyzed in a position of stasis while the 2 beings went up inside the entryway hatch, and then this craft flew away. Absolutely bizarre case. Now, here's our full color rendering. I'm going to go to that, but this is the Boston Globe, July 8th, 1965. Flying saucer or secret plane. They go into great detail about this particular case. Here is our full color rendering that shows you with Maurice mass. You've got the two beams, you've got the pulse of energy, but very interesting case, very well documented. We've got multiple newspaper clippings that discuss this case in great detail.
Is that a cool looking craft or what?
Of course.
Man, I love this case. I absolutely love this case. Now, doesn't it ring a little bit like Lonnie too as well?
You could say, you could say. There's a little bit going on there.
Yeah. Fascinating. Lavender.
Yep.
Lavender.
Okay, now moving on to my favorite case of all time. This is not my case. This is an official Project Blue Book Air Force case. This is not my case. This is Air Force Project Blue Book case. March 23rd, 1966, Temple, Oklahoma. An electronics instructor at Shepherd Air Force Base. It's about 5:08 in the morning. So the sun is just coming up above the horizon. It was still a little bit dark out. He is on his way to work at Shepherd Air Force Base. He's on his morning commute. So he's not thinking much of it. He's just driving down the road. He had his headlights on. And all of a sudden, something that looked like an overturned bowling pin was blocking the road perpendicular. It even looked like a perch or a fish. Now I'm going to start on the right-hand side. There was a bubble transparent canopy that looked like it came off of a B-26 World War II bomber. The whole craft was sitting on pogo landing gear legs about 3 feet off the pavement. There were 2 beaming spotlights shining forward. There was 2 additional beaming spotlights shining vertically downward. Aft of the forward landing gear legs was an air stair door that was opened up. There was a man, Jimmy. There was a man, not an alien, not an extraterrestrial. There was a man wearing 2-piece green military fatigues. He was shining a flashlight down to the lower portion of the air stair door. He had a baseball cap with the bill turned up. Now, above and aft of the opening of the air stair door was a stinger or spire that swept back and terminated into a 6-inch diameter sphere. So here's this prong and protrusion again.
I love it.
Below and to the aft on the starboard side of the craft was a 3.5-foot diameter porthole window that was divided into 4 equal pie segments. Just aft of that, written in black letters, TL4768, written on the side of the craft. At the very end of the craft, there were flight controls that were way too small to be aerodynamically efficient. Now, as Eddie Laxson was going back toward the trunk of his vehicle to pull out his camera, he was going to take a photograph of all this.
Of course.
This guy noticed he was being watched. So he climbed up the air stair door. He closed the door. And then the report said that there was a high-pitched drilling noise, like something was spooling up. This craft levitates off the pavement for about 50 feet in altitude, and then departs like a spark on a grinding wheel and made no sonic boom. This is back in 1966. We had the technology in 1966 to do away with rockets. Now, back to the TL4768. I have a running cash prize reward of $100 for anyone that can provide documented paperwork proving what this insignia means. What does the TL4768 mean? I think it has something to do with the Atomic Energy Commission, something to do with the AEC. It's some type of serial number.
$100, huh? $100 ducks quacking in the pond. You've got on the table here.
That's right.
Let me ask you the $1 million question.
Okay.
Backwards engineered technology being tested?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You know, I don't want to minimize good old-fashioned American ingenuity. This is 1968. The breakthroughs in gravity barrier is late October 1954. So they had over 10 years to perfect the technology. So we don't necessarily have to have any alien intervention on this particular craft. So here is Eddie Laxson's original sketch. You can see the dimensions there, 75 feet across, 8 feet high. And if this is correct, then obviously you can see that his drawing is out of scale. The whole thing needs to be stretched off to the left, way off the page here. So I spent a whole day correcting the configuration, and this is the more accurate configuration. Now, he also said that this man with the two-piece green military fatigue, he was wearing what looked like U.S. Naval chevrons on his shoulder. And Eddie Laxson said that he was so close to this man that he could, quote, recognize him later that afternoon in Oklahoma City. That's how close he was to this man with the flashlight. So he got a very close-up look of this thing.
I have, you gave me this drawing. I have this.
Oh,
drawing.
yeah.
Yeah, I have this drawing. It's rolled. I have a few, but I have this, one of my favorites.
Oh, good. That's
I have
good.
this. Yeah, it's so. Back to this case for a second. We're going to continue with it. Was there another sighting similar on the same night, on also blocking another street with another witness?
There was another sighting the same morning, and it was after this craft departed, like a spark on a grinding wheel. Eddie Laxson got back into his car. He drove another half mile down the road, and he saw a man pulled off to the side of the road, and he was in a panel truck. He was kind of standing on the floorboard with the door open. And when Eddie Laxson stopped and talked to him, he said that guy told him that he was being followed by something that looked just like what Eddie Laxson had seen. So there were two witnesses within a matter of minutes that saw this craft. Now, back to this slide right here. What is this spire or stinger coming back toward the aft end of the craft that has a ball at the end of it? I mean, what is this thing? And we want to make the mention that on every single UFO that has a feature or a prong or a protrusion, there's got to be a reason for everything. It cannot be haphazard or by accident. There is a design intent for every feature on these craft. So I started looking at high voltage electrical equipment. And if you look at Wimshurst generators, you've got these prongs sticking out with balls at the end of them. And what I'm proposing, Jimmy, is these are static electrical discharge spheres. Because the witness said that there was a high-pitched drilling noise that took place before this thing took off. So when you have a Wimshurst generator that's spooling up, is that what Eddie Laxson was hearing? And these prongs with balls at the end of them, is that? And
what would the purpose? What would this do? Is it propulsion or something else?
It could have something to do with an electrogravitic propulsion system, but at the very least, we're dealing with high voltage electrical charges in a number of these UFO cases because people report a number of things, and this is reported by Eddie Laxson as well, is that there were CE2 effects, including the hair on his arms and head started standing up vertically. The whole area was permeated in a static electrical field. So now we know that there is high voltage electrical charges going on with a lot of these cases. Other people report a low frequency electrical humming noise, like a sewing machine or a transformer. So at the very least, we've got static electrical charges here.
And this would be DC, not AC.
I think that's correct. DC charge.
Yeah, I think
here is Eddie Laxson's hand-drawn sketch. Off to the left is where the craft came down and blocked his road. So this is his original sketch. So I went to MapQuest and I pulled up where that is. And I think I can get us, it's 1/2 mile west from the intersection of 65 and 70. I think I can get us, Jimmy, plus or minus 100 feet where this craft came down. And this is the exact location. So if we could be here back in 1966, March 23rd, 1966, in the morning, and we'd be parked at this area, we'd be seeing this craft, Jimmy, right here.
Did you just say MapQuest?
Yeah, MapQuest, old time.
Did you say MapQuest on
Google,
this show?
Google, but it just shows
Do you
where
still use Skype?
No.
I'm messing with you, Michael.
All good,
Okay,
all good.
so I can't wait to see what you've got next.
Okay, let's continue on here. So here is the Project Blue Book index card. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says observer spotted object parked on highway in front of his car. Observer stopped car and got out to investigate, but as he got close to the object, a man apparently entered the object, and immediately the object began to rise from the ground. So here they talk about this. They also talk about a high-pitched drilling noise as well. Here's the newspaper clipping. Lawton Morning Press, March 24th, 1966. Temple man meets UFO on highway. Wichita Falls Times, March 23rd, 1966. Strange flying object sighted. Here are the bullet items. William Eddie Laxson was a pilot since 1941. He had 8,000 hours of flight time and taught a course in aircraft recognition. So bottom line, Jimmy, is we could not have picked a better witness.
Right.
Number 2, object rose from the ground with the sound of a high-speed electric drill, hissing geese, or of a welding torch. Other people describe this as fried bacon noise. That's what these crafts sound like. Number 3, craft caused the hair on his arms and head to stand up. So here we've got this static electrical field again. Number 4.
DC. Yeah, DC. Yep. DC.
The man standing next to the craft was wearing GI fatigues and had chevrons on his uniform. 5, Laxson stated that he would, quote, recognize the man if he saw him in Oklahoma City tomorrow. That's how close he was to this guy.
Yeah, the baseball hat with the bill turned up.
Yeah.
That's an earthling, right?
That's an earthling. Houston Post, April 10th, 1966. Laxson, who is familiar with aircraft, said he had no thoughts about the craft being from outer space or even from another country. Quote, it's an American piece of machinery. He said it's nothing foreign. So even he thought for sure, this is one of ours. This is one of ours. This is not alien. This is one of ours. Daily Oklahoman, March 1st, 1971. This is a photograph of Eddie on the upper right-hand side. And it says, object sighting now rude. And what this means is that he regretted ever even reporting this because he was bullied. He was made fun of. He got calls from England at 3 a.m. And he wished that he had never talked about this. And what this does is, in point of fact, it actually adds credibility to the case rather than detracts credibility. It adds credibility. He wouldn't want any fame or fortune whatsoever. Here's another quote. What I saw was definitely not from space. The man was wearing fatigues and had a cap with the bill broken up like Air Force mechanics wear, Laxson said. It had common English letters on it. So here, just to reinforce the point that he felt that this was one of ours.
John Deere. He had a John Deere hat on.
That's right.
John Deere.
That brings us to this slide, referring to Eddie Laxson's comment. We should all consider very carefully the tremendous implications about what that statement really means. When you ponder on what Eddie Laxson is telling us, we really need to think about the tremendous implications of what all this could mean, right? Because what it means is, if we already had the technology to travel into space without using liquid rockets as early as March of 1966, then what was the Saturn V rocket for? Jimmy, what was the Apollo program for? What was all this all about if we already had the technology to do away with liquid rockets earlier than 1966?
To obfuscate our race with the Russians and let them think that, okay, we're in a rocket race, right?
Right.
It's always been my take on that. Let them think that's where we are.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Soyuz and whatever they're doing over there. Okay. So, right. But we are engineering other stuff and we're focusing on something else. And you keep the Apollo, Gemini, Mercury, you keep Atlas, right? You keep all of that stuff out front,
right?
To throw everything off of the scent.
Right. But meantime, within the U.S. Navy, within the Atomic Energy Commission, within the defense contractors, we're developing black classified programs that have nothing to do with liquid rockets.
Correct.
That's what the evidence is leading us to. Now look at this. Right. You've got the F1 engine, and there's 5 of these on the bottom of the Saturn V. You've got these turbo pumps. You've got these valves. You've got multiple single point failures. I mean, it's a wreck. It's a mess. It's the way of the dodo birds. Any one of these fails, and you're going to lose the craft, and you're going to lose the pilots, the crew members. Let's move on here. Total combined thrust, 7.5 million pounds. Is all this really necessary? Is all this window dressing? That's the bigger question.
Right.
And was Neil Armstrong briefed about this technology that Eddie Laxson saw? No, he wasn't. Would he even have climbed in that rocket knowing what we know now, right? Would he even climb in there with Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins? Would they even got in there risking their lives with this obsolete liquid rocket boosters? No way. No way. Why would you when you already have this technology? Have we all been played? Have we all been sold a bill of goods here? That brings us to Challenger, January 20th, 1986. Jimmy, do you remember where you were on this morning?
Yeah, it was 1985. This is the Mandela.
1986. 1986.
I know. I remember exactly where I was. I was in my kitchen, and I remember it as 1985.
Nope, it was January 20th, 1986.
I know that's what the facts say. I know that's what the facts say. But I'll never forget that day. Never.
We all know what happened 73 seconds after liftoff, and we lost the Challenger astronauts along with school teacher Krista McCullough. So here's my question. Why didn't they brief the pilot and crew members? Why didn't they tell Krista McCullough about this other black classified technology? They just let them go they would have never even got in that Challenger if they knew we had a much more advanced secret space program that didn't use rockets whatsoever. We could have saved Krista McCullough and all the other astronauts. We just passed the 40-year anniversary.
Crazy.
Now, if you look to the left.
We're on limited time. We've got a lot more to cover. I just wanted to ask, did you see that crazy thing in the sky yesterday?
No.
It looked like the Ghostbuster symbol. Well, it turned out to be it was 2 nights ago, Valentine's night. It was February 14th. I walk out in my front yard, and I opened up my garage, and there it was. And it took up the whole sky's clear except for this round circle with a line through it. It was miles across, and there it is. So I shot a video. Turned out, I guess, it turned out to be a Vandenberg launch. And then the upper atmosphere and the winds, right, forced the normal gas, streak that we see in the sky, right, forced it back, dude, into a perfect circle that's probably 10 miles around. Perfect circle with a line through it. It looked like Saturn, and it took up the whole sky. Look it up on the net. You didn't see it. You're here in Southern California. You didn't see it. It's all over the web, but I happened to see it in real time, and I shot a video of it. Pretty incredible. Back to your point. So we have this, SpaceX stuff, or is there something else that is much safer with not as many moving parts?
Right. There you go.
Right. And maybe ET changed the vapor trail into no more launches, right? It's the Ghostbusters symbol in the sky. It was crazy, man.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was insane. Look it up after the show.
Okay. Now, I want to direct everyone's attention to the far left. This is astronaut Ellison Onizuka. Before he was an astronaut, he was a pilot based at McClellan Air Force Base back in 1973. Okay. Now, a friend of Leonard Stringfield by the name of Chris Coffey got to speak to Ellison Onizuka when he was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And they were talking about interesting things. A subject of UFO came up, and Ellison Onizuka told Chris Coffey that back in 1973, he was at McClellan Air Force Base and he was with a number of other pilots. They walked into a briefing room. The lights came down, and then there was an Air Force personnel at the back of the room with a 16 millimeter film projector. He turned on the film projector, and then projected on the far back wall was a black and white clip of 2 deceased ET bodies on slabs. And Ellison Onizuka remembered thinking, oh my God, I can't believe this. Now, Ellison Onizuka was scheduled to talk to Leonard Stringfield and get a first-hand report. They were going to talk to each other. They had this all set up. This is all ready to go. 2 weeks before the meeting took place, Challenger blew up, and he never got a chance to speak to Leonard Stringfield.
Wow.
He never got a chance. Now,
Wow.
The reason why I'm going with this is for the last 2 years, I have had a crusade. Well, it's more like 4 years. I've had a crusade to take all of Leonard Stringfield's status reports and go through them with an absolutely fine-tooth, meticulous comb and pull out all the mission-critical cases, commit them to a drawing by my good friend Rudy Gardea. None of this would have happened without Rudy.
Right.
Follow up with a full color rendering. I want to give Joel Christopher Payne his credit. Always want to give people credit where they're due. Now, since AI and ChatGPT came along, we have been optimizing this for years now, making it better, getting it better. I'm here to report that I'm in the process of doing a documentary with Ron James, and it's called Stringfield Theory. And we are going to go into all these cases in great fine detail. We're going to give you the drawings, the sketches, the illustrations, the full color rendering, and we're going to give you world exclusive video clips on all these cases. So that's an announcement I'm making on your show for the very first time.
Yeah, thank you for that. And, you know, you're amazing. Ron is amazing. And Lenny Stringfield, right? Oh, man. Yeah, this is going to be, I've read all of his books multiple times. And just one of the great, I was talking to Richard Dolan once, and I said, so Richard, who's your guy? You know, you know, but he goes, Stringfield, man.
Yeah.
And I'm so with him on that. I am so with Leonard Stringfield, tireless, extraordinary, amazing research.
He was the gentleman who coined the term UFO crash retrieval. And now in these congressional hearings, we have David Grush talking about a legacy UAP crash retrieval program. The word legacy, he's referring to Leonard Stringfield's military witnesses. That's what he's referring to.
Yeah, Leonard Stringfield. And, you know, going back to, we talked earlier about this. We've got other stuff, but going back to one of the original cool Army Air Corps, U.S. Air Force wasn't around yet, but in the Pacific Theater, a troop transport plane heading into, I think they were on their way to like the Philippines.
They were in a C-46.
Right. On their way to the Philippines or something, right?
They were going to Iwo Jima. Yep.
Iwo Jima, right. And they have the most amazing sighting ever. And that kind of, when you hear about that report, and it's all right there, everything is there. But one of the troops on that plane was Leonard Stringfield. And he got to see one of the most, and it's one of the original amazing cases. Okay, moving on before we run out of time.
Cool. Okay, let's continue. Let's move on. May 16th, 1967, Falcon Lake, Canada. We have Stephen Mekulik, who was a rock hound. He was a gem collector, and he was minding his own business. He had a leather suctions gloves on. He had a welder's goggles. He had thick shirt on. He had jeans on. He had work boots on, and he heard some commotion, some birds in back of him. He looked around. He saw two identical craft. They were both 40 feet in diameter. One of them departed at a slow rate of speed. The other one landed 300 feet from where he was standing. And Jimmy, it sat there for a half an hour. And he got a close-up look at this thing. It was just sitting there for a half an hour before he walked up to it. So let's move on to the next slide here. Now, there was an entryway hatch door that opened up, and there was a violet purple colored light coming out of it. He heard laughter, and he heard an unintelligible language. So he tried to reach them in American, Polish, Spanish. Nothing worked. Now, along the vertical axis, going about 10 degrees clockwise, was another port that was much smaller than the one he was looking in. And he said that there were evenly spaced, what looked like 1/16-inch diameter holes drilled into this port. And he's kind of looking in here. Now, this is a blow up of Stephen Meckelek looking inside. Now, this craft hovered off the ground about 12 inches, rotated, and that hole pitch pattern on that exhaust port lined up perfectly with his chest, and there was some type of a exhaust that burned him. And the hole pitch pattern on this exhaust port lined up perfectly with the burn mark on his chest. Now, he died just recently, and concurrently over the years, this burn mark kept appearing, reappearing, and disappearing. This went on for years, all the way up until he died just a couple of years ago. So here's a blow up that shows you the 16th inch diameter holes, the hole pitch pattern lining up perfectly with the burn mark on his chest. Here's an illustration showing you this welder's mask that he had on, thick leather gloves he was wearing because he didn't want to get any chips in his eyes. He was prepared for all this, but he wasn't prepared for what he was looking at here. Here's the drawing that shows you the burn marks on his chest. And then I reached my good friend Antonio Huneas. He used to be my coworker at Open Minds. And he had a photo from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police that he let me scan in. And here you can see the circular mark that was made by the craft when it was landed on the soil. So we've got CE1 case, CE2 case, because it made physical effects. And I don't think this photo has been seen very much, but this is from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. It shows you that this craft made a circular mark on the soil here. Here is the Edmonton Journal, May 24th, 1967, and you've got Stephen Meckelek holding up his original sketch, and it says, "Foul smell persists. UFO sighter suffers chest burn." They go into this in great detail. This is another one of those top 10 cases. This might be number 4 behind Cash Landrum, but it's definitely top 10 for sure. And then we can move on to this case, which I think is important. January 1st, 1970. This is in Canada. The primary eyewitness was a nurse by the name of Doreen Kendall, and she was at this hospital on the 3rd floor. This is at night, and she's going around making the rounds, checking all her patients. One of her patients was getting restless, so she went over to the window, opened up the curtains, was getting ready to let some fresh air in. And this is kind of a rough drawing here. Parked right outside the window, hovering 50 feet up above the ground, was a 50-foot diameter dish-shaped craft tipped at a 15-degree angle toward her. It had a bubble transparent canopy. There was a ring of lights wrapped around the outer circumference of the rim of the craft itself. And then she said that there were 2 humanoid-looking beings that looked like men. She said their physiques were just extraordinary. They were wearing a one-piece tight-fitting black flight suit that covered their entire bodies up to their faces and their wrists. Their hands were exposed. They were sitting or standing next to 2 bar stools. On the forward section of the craft itself, I'm going to go on to the next slide here. It gives you a little bit better, clear illustration. There was a control panel with buttons and switches. Now, the man on the left saw that he was being watched. Doreen Kendall was our primary eyewitness. He turned around and tapped the shoulder of the other guy that was facing the control panel. The second he did that, this guy pulled this lever back and forth 3 times, and then this thing flew away at a low rate of speed. Here's my full color rendering that gives you an idea of what Doreen Kendall saw January 1st, 1970. And then this is the schematic layout. So we've got 60 feet above the ground. We've got about a 20-degree tip-down angle, and you can see the witness location here in the window. She got a real good close-up look at this.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yep, this is what she saw, and no reason for her to lie whatsoever. There was one other nurse that saw it as well. Here's the detailed drawing that shows you the control panel. It shows you the humanoid-looking beings. It shows you the bar stools, all of the displays and circular sections. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. This is an original scan from the original letter by Doreen Kendall. I'm not going to read all this, but it says here, the inside as tipped toward me and looking into same. Then she goes on, the instrument panel was larger than shown as the first man was at the controls, consisting of large and small, circular, brilliantly lit up. And then off to the right, she's got a sketch. And it's a good drawing. You got to give her credit. Why would this nurse at the hospital lie? For what reason? Absolutely no reason whatsoever. I consider her a credible witness, without a doubt. So we've got a world exclusive here, and I want to show you this color pencil drawing that I don't think has been seen for over 50 years, but just gives you a very good idea of what Doreen Kendall saw.
Wow.
Here's the full color rendering. She's kind of looking out here. Again, no reason for her to lie. And then this is the blow up of the crew compartment with this big bubble transparent canopy dome. And then I had Rudy do a refined drawing of this thing. Now we can see the interior details. And I want to mention again that when the guy who noticed that he was being watched tapped the shoulder of the other gentleman that was looking at the control panel, he pulled this long lever back and forth 3 times, and then this thing flew away at a low rate of speed. But it's screaming a man-made technology. It's absolutely screaming a man-made technology.
It certainly is. Hey, Michael, we need to wrap, but let me do this. I'm going to have Michelle reach out to you.
Okay.
And I want to do a part 2 ASAP.
Sure.
All right.
No
Deal?
problem. Deal.
Man, just thank you. So what a great night on the show. We've got a lot more to cover. And we will do that. You're just the absolute best. I miss you, man. You need to come out here and let's go hang out at Skunk Works.
Roger that.
Do our thing.
I'll do it.
So thank you so much, Michael.
No
We're going to do a part 2, everybody. Don't worry about it. I'll have Michelle schedule that with you and we'll get it done. Okay.
Jimmy, we got enough cases to make it through the next ice age. So
that's what I'm talking about. Thank you so much, Michael Schratt. I love you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
The absolute best right there. What a great night on the show. Thank you, Michael. What a great way to kick off the week. And so there you go. We've got a short week this week. I do want to remind everybody, I'm going to be at Conscious Life Expo this weekend. The big announcement that I did earlier, we have 2 with Conscious Life Expo. Go to consciouslifeexpo.com. 1, my luncheon is about to sell out. That is on Sunday. If you want to go, and I know that you do, you need to go to consciouslifeexpo.com and get your tickets before it does sell out. There's only a few left, so take care of that. Second is on Monday, Ross Coulthard is at PostCon is going to bring a whistleblower up and talk about his case for the first time. This is also a worldwide exclusive, and that's going down on Monday. So go to consciouslifeexpo.com, check out PostCon, check out the rest of the stuff. I'll see everybody right here tomorrow night. But until then, all I've got is go Beckley tapping. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Beckley Tappy.